four wheels wobble. Okay, that was short and sweet. It started to rain. We've got a storm coming in. Storm Anton. And we've had weather warnings, so there's no point of doing anything out there. So I'll put it back on the trickle charge. Whilst we've got this bad weather, I'll tell you what we can do. We can have a look at the history of Annie. And I can show you some documentation. So we might as well have a look at that, because we're off on a run soon, the next few days, and hopefully the weather's going to be a lot better. Here we have some of the tax sticks that we saved from over the years. The best ones are at the bottom really, where it says nil, because you had to pay for the rest of them. There was a long period of paying for it, which is ridiculous. I think we've got a concession, I can't remember now, but anyway, look, nil. That's the best one. Here are the original registered keepers, Mr. Kenrick, traffic manager, who obviously had it taken back and painted black. Then the guy, he had it for 3 years, and the guy after him, in nothing Handsworth, he only had it for 6 months, and only taxed it for 6 months until Mrs. Petite bought it, who lived in Handsworth as well, and eventually just retired to Herne Bay in Kent, where the car stayed. And that's at that point I found out from the original owners that she was called Annie. As you can see there, it's registered as a saloon and it's black. And just an interesting note at the bottom of here, I believe it says 1952, and I think he stamped it with the yesterday's stamp, because it says 51. There would have only been a day in it. As you can see, it was taxed all the way up to 1967, and it was probably taxed after that, because I think around about 73, I think they changed the logbooks. I think they got rid of the logbooks and introduced the V5 document, and I do know that this did not have a V5 document, so it wasn't registered, and it still had its, obviously you can still see the original logbook, but it wasn't registered at all. And then the kerfluffle with the DVLA. I said, no, it's not registered before 1973, so you can't have it. They issued me with a new number. I refused to have that. I sent that back. And then they sent an inspector out, but by that time I'd found out that it was an export model. And on the basis of it being a rare export model, they allowed me to keep the number. As you can see, if you pause this piece here and just read the letter if you want, not a problem. But yeah, I kept the number, LOV. And I found out back then that there was a bit of a con going on with these number plates. Somebody told me, and I think it was in the news as well, that they were actually selling them on because they're of great value. And obviously they would take it off you, and there was no real need, because they could have typed it in on the computer. And they did in the end, because they found out, obviously, it was an export model. As I say, the inspector came out, he had a look at the plates and such, and did a thorough examination. He reported it back, and when we stripped it back, these colours were underneath the lead oxide paint, because I put it back to black, thinking it was just it was black because it says that on the logbook. But these colours were actually underneath the lead oxide primer, so it was black lead oxide, and then we were up back a bit further, and these colours appeared. Now I do know the history after, when we went from Herne Bay and back to Sutton Coldfield, Bassett's Pole in Birmingham, or the Midlands, or Warwickshire, sorry, as it was then. After that, it was sold to a guy who wanted to start a museum up. He didn't do it, it failed. He was going to start it up in Birmingham somewhere, and I know that because I know the trader, who is a good friend of ours. He bought a job lot off him. He's a few old ones, and this car. We couldn't really understand why this was ever going to go into a museum, really, because there were a lot of these around. But then I go back to the fact that it was an export model. We found that out because of the numbers, obviously, on the plates, but because of these lights here for export. And these are pressed into the steel. They're not cut and added on later, as was suggested to me. They're pressed into the steel. And eventually I did tracked down the correct lights for it. Rest is history, because after that, when it failed to go to the museum and it was bought at this garage, it only stayed there for a year and they didn't know what to do with it. And then I had her in 1985, and the rest, as they say, is history. And we're off on a run soon, next week. So I hope this flipping weather picks up a bit better, because I hear the summer's coming back. So next time I pull these blinds open, I'm going to shut them now, but the next time I pull them open, the summer will be here. Anyway, thank you for watching this little brief episode of Four Wheels Wobble. I'll a little bit of history there for you. So yeah, please stay tuned and please subscribe. Anyway, catch you later. Bye. I don't know what's at the front. See that first time? It played me up a minute ago. Fucking problem. Doors open. Right, that's it.